So I would like to shift from French to English so that you can talk about decolonization. It's a topic that is hot, and as you have said, Professor Peter Baofu, you are someone who wrote a variety of books, and you made many interviews on TVs, radios, even newspapers about various topics related to social science, human being, human rights, economics, such kind of matters. So today we are talking about decolonization, some 50 years, even more, about the colonization of Africa. Why people still think that Africa is not yet decolonized?
Now, that's a very interesting question, and that's also a very important question, too. In fact, a lot of people, even in the African continent, are even talking about that now, about, let's say, the talk about Pan-Africanism and trying to unify Africa. Why do they want to do that? Because they want to be strong so that they can kick out all this colonial and post-colonial control and occupation and all that. But in a major sense, I think that Africa, many African countries, I'm talking about sub-Saharan Africa, which is the black Africa. I'm not talking about, let's say, Northern Africa, which is Arabic and Mediterranean. They have different problems also. I would like to focus on sub-Saharan Africa, which is black Africa. I think that Africa...
Why you separate both?
That's because the situation for the blacks in Africa, the sub-Saharan Africa, is different from the situation facing the northern part. Yeah, they are a bit different in many ways. But anyway, going back to the issue about the colonial legacy, I think that African countries, they are free colonially, but they are not free post-colonially. Now, what do I mean by that is that in the literature, I wrote about this a lot too, is that there is a distinction between colonialism and post-colonialism. Right now, if you look into many African countries, let's say in black Africa, and you will see that many countries, they are free, they become independent politically. But in terms of many other domains, they are still under the influence of former colonial powers. Let me give you some examples. We are speaking English here right now. In some other cases, we speak French. Why? In many African countries, you go to Western Africa, many of them speak French, even on TV officially. Also in Central Africa. In Eastern Africa and Southern Africa, you see some people, they speak English, sometimes even officially. Now, there is a colonial legacy. Why do you not use your own local language? Why do you still want to use the colonial languages as the official language for your own country? Look at China. China, they speak Chinese officially. In France, they speak French. They don't speak your language. In Germany, they speak German. But they don't say, we're going to adopt Swahili as the official language tomorrow in Germany. No, they don't, because they don't have that colonial legacy. You have. Okay? Now, there are consequences because it controls your mindset. The language that you use controls how you think about ideas. One example. Another example is religion. Many of you are Christians. Some of you are Muslims. You go to Western Africa or Central Africa, you see a lot of Muslims. And in Eastern Africa, Southern Africa, you see a lot of Christians. But those are the colonial legacy. First, the Western one is the Christian one. The Islamic one is the Arabic one, back to the early several centuries ago. Now, why? How come if you go to the US, how come they don't accept the African local religion as their own religion? No. You go to France, how come they don't accept one of your local African religion as their religion? You worship Jesus Christ. He's a white man. But why do you not worship your own black God, whatever God that you may have in African folklores? You see, colonial legacy again. Now you are still doing that. On Sunday, so many people walk on the street. They dress very nice. They go to churches or they go to mosques in some other days. The mindset is still very colonial. Your God is a white man. Now, there is some consequences of your own thinking about yourself, your own identity. Another example, politically, many of them, for example, have the democratic institution. You keep the political system here is borrowed from on what basis? European one. Do you have your own political system, which is modeled based on your own political culture? No. You borrow this, in this case, from the British or the French, wherever that might be in Africa. Another way of looking about yourself, for example.
But when African countries want to initiate their own way of governance, it is criticized as not democratic.
I'm glad that you say that. This is your colonial mindset. You have inferiority complex. You believe in them. They criticize you, you accept it. You have inferiority complex. You look down on yourself.
It's better to say Africa, not me.
Okay. In general, okay, I'm talking about you, not you personally.
Yes, Africans, yeah.
Okay. Look at China as a good example. The Western countries criticize China all the time. But the Chinese, they do not listen. They are very proud of themselves. Okay? But you listen. When they criticize you, you believe in them because you want to copy them.
Why African listen?
Because they have, this is what they call in the literature, when you have an inferiority complex, you always want to copy the advanced countries as the one that you want to do things. If they do something, you do that too. You copy. Over time, look, Europeans in the last 200 years do not like to copy you, but you like to copy them, almost a lot of things. This is the colonial legacy. They control your mindset. If you have a very strong identity for yourself, you don't look up toward them all the time. You look at yourself because you know what you are good at. Japan is another good example. India too, by the way, now they are getting very, very nationalistic. They say we have a joint civilization. Or in the case of China, they do the same thing. They look back into their own culture and own civilization. They are very proud of themselves. They don't want to copy you. They can learn from you, but in the end, they want to be themselves. That's what the Chinese, they always behave like Chinese. The West always criticizes them, but in the end, they do not listen. You see, they don't have this kind of inferiority complex.
And how that inferiority complex will disappear?
You have to get rid of many of the things that I just said. Another good example, military. Many African countries now, they still have a lot of foreign military bases. Look at the French is a good example. Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, just kicked them out after all these years. You should have kicked them out a long time ago. But they still have that in Senegal. They still have that in Gabon. They still have that in Djibouti. They still have that in Chad. Huh?
No local currency.
Economic is another thing too. I'm glad that you mentioned that. Economically, the same problem. In Rwanda, you use random francs. Why francs? Why do you not use your local money? I mean, this is important economically because they also control you economically, because once you use foreign currency as your own currency, they control your money supply. You don't have a lot of independent monetary policy, and that's very bad for you. And when you print those money, you have to pay. You pay them to print your own money. Oh, think about it. Have you ever thought about this? And if you have no control over your monetary policy, it hurts you a lot in development. You have no control over your monetary policy. And they have been going on for many years now. Why you should not get rid of that?
It happened in one day for China, Japan, or India to become more confident vis-a-vis to Western, or to demolish that inferiority complex?
In the case of China, they don't have this kind of problem as much as you have, because China has been dominant in human civilization. Many people do not know. In much of human history in the last 3,000 or 4,000 years, Chinese and the Indian civilization were the dominant ones for most of the time. It was only until the 19th century then you saw the collapse of the Indian Empire and the Chinese Empire. Then the Europeans came and tried to colonize. Unsuccessfully in China, but successfully in India. But the point is, for much of human history, They were the dominant ones. And that's why, especially for the Chinese, they have in fact, the Chinese in many ways have a superiority complex. They think of themselves as the center. That's why when the Western power try to lecture them about this, they do not listen. They don't listen. You see that? That is the problem here. And that's why the West and China do not get along, because the West also want to lecture China do not listen. And that's why they always like this. But Africa is not like that. Africa has been under the colonial control for so much. Even now, right now in post-colonial situation, they are still copying everything. Every time in Africa when there's a problem, they always look up to the former colonial powers. They want to copy that. Whatever. In fact, you talk about the vaccine here is another example. You go to the European Union and ask for help. Again, you want to copy them, but you don't understand your own economy.
But does that mean that there is no way of look for other source of funding in the future?
I think that is a question of economic development that you have to decide. There's not just one solution. I think that different people may have their own different ideologies, but I'm just saying that if you only look up toward the former colonial powers, it's not good for you. You have to look up into your own identity and ask yourself, what exactly do you want? You are not Chinese, you are not French, you are not Italian, you are not Americans, you are who you are. So what is the identity which is about you? That you can say, this is what we want, it doesn't matter what they say. They can say whatever you just told me. They criticize your political system when you want to implement something which is local. Why do you care? You see that? So now, when you have a weak identity, you listen very carefully. You want to just do whatever they ask you to do. But can you ask the Italian, the German, the Russian, or the British, tell them that they have to copy African values and beliefs? They will not listen to you. But you listen to them. Can you criticize them? They don't care about what you think. But you care about what they think.
So now, how this will end?
How do you end?
So when you speak, it's like there is no hope. African will be always under colonialist power.
Have you ever heard the expression, to understand the problem is already half of the solution solved?
Yeah.
So
We
first,
have the same expression in Rwanda that when you are sick, when you start to talk about your sickness, is the start of the healing.
instead of blaming other people for your own problem, you blame the weather, you blame the virus. It's better look into yourself. So the point that I'm trying to make is that to understand all these different problems that I just mentioned to you is already the beginning. Look at education. You have not talked about education yet. I went to some schools here. I have been a professor for many years. I always like to go to school and watch people. And when I went to some of the school here, university, high school, primary school, and all that, look at the textbooks. Many of the textbooks are made by Western countries. You do not produce your own textbooks. And many of those books, what do they teach you? You know more about the West, Western countries, Western history, Western values and beliefs than your own country. And many of those people, sometimes they don't even know much about their own African local history. All they know, they tell you so much about Paris, about London, about New York. They can tell you all this kind of thing, religion, Jesus Christ, about movies, Hollywood films. They can tell you so much about all these Western countries, but what do you really know about your African history 2,000 years ago? You don't know much of anything. You forget about them. And your children learn all of this textbook. And they can spend days and nights talking to you about other countries. But when you question them about their own history, they don't know much of anything. You see, that is the problem. Again, colonial, post-colonial mindset. What's the solution? Now you see the problem, you should get rid of all of this. But the leadership in Africa is not doing any of this. Rwanda, by the way, is making some progress, but Rwanda is still in the process of doing that. The initiative, by the way, that we just mentioned a while ago is another good example. It's still a colonial mindset here that you need to get rid of. Stop copying all the time. You can learn from others, but you have to know who you are in terms of what is your political identity, what's your economic identity, what's your cultural identity, what's your educational identity, what's your military identity. You have to know about all of this and what exactly do you want instead of just copying other people. If you keep copying other people, you're always behind. You understand me? You cannot be the most powerful. You cannot be the center of the world if you copy. Because if you copy others, that means that you always have to copy them. That means they are always ahead of you. That means that this can never be resolved. You need to get out of that trap and say, no, I don't want to copy you anymore. I know what I want. This is what I want, which is different from you. This is my identity. And I pursue that now. Thank you. Thank you for lecturing me. I don't need that. Now I know what I want. I want A, B, C, and D. You criticize me, fine. You can go to hell. That's my identity. I do not question you. You don't question me. That's called democracy, isn't it? In a way, that's called equality. Equality is one of the fundamental value ideals in a democratic system.
And do you think that this situation will happen one day?
Yes, I think it's already happening. Look, Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, they are waking up now. They kick out the French military bases. They do not want them. They say, we can take care of our own security. Because once they have the military bases, look, the French military bases, in the last 40 or 50 years, they have been responsible of supporting so many corrupt political regimes in Western Africa, Central Africa for French interest. Okay? And every time in the last 40, 50, 60, whatever years, every time when someone came up and criticized the French, he was overthrown. You can name it, all those people, and how many of them have been shot and killed and all that. You see that? Once you have foreign troops stationed in your country, they are there. You cannot criticize because they can come in and intervene. And now, one way to become independent, you need to kick them out and take care of your own security. Yes, I know it's not easy to take care of your own security. At least you have your own sovereignty. At least now, it's only the beginning. You have a lot of things to do. But this is a good example of military identity.
Where to start, besides the military aspect?
All of this, culturally, economically, politically, military, educationally, even healthcare, by the way. Culturally too. All of this. Stop talking too much English or French. Say more about your own language, using your own language in school, on TV, and all that, and in the newspaper. And to dress, don't dress too dress. Be proud of yourself. You have to know who you are, your own religion. Now you have to learn to worship your own God, black gods. Because when you worship another god, you have inferior morality.
God has a color.
That is important.
God has no color.
Because religion is an ideology too. That's how people control it. By the way,
Before we end.
okay. Lastly, why do you think they impose Christian religion on you? Do you remember what Jesus Christ said? When someone slapped your left cheek, you turn the other cheek and left him. But he never said, fight back. Because when they colonize you, do not fight back. Just submit. Turn the other cheek. Let them hit you. Let them colonize you. Be nice. Love your enemy. Don't fight back. It's wonderful.
Sometimes the peaceful ways also work.
Short term. But in the long term, you will be enslaved. And that's why we are talking about this question. If this question had been resolved by your Christian religion, why are we still arguing now? That means that we have not resolved it. It still continue. That is the whole point, isn't it?
If the problem was the religion, I think many other problems we found the solution. But the problem is not the religion as such. It's many.
That's why I said the post-colonial liberation requires a lot of things. I mentioned a few of them: cultural, political, diplomatic, military, educational, and so on, and language too, by the way, and educationally, and all that. So we have many of them. I just give you some examples.
In one world, it means that African countries, they have to accept to die or to see their children dying because they don't have, they cannot survive if they don't gain the funds from Western countries. And to have funds or resources, financial, it means that someone is controlling you. Look at parents, when they feed children, they can say anything, but when children are independent, no more big influence.
Yes, but the problem here is that over time you have a dependency problem. That is the issue here. Have you ever seen the expression that your kids, they have to grow up? If they keep asking you this and this, sooner or later you're going to say, you need to learn to grow up. Okay? Dependency is only short term, but it's not for long term. Africa has become independent for many decades now. How many more years and decades? Look at Haiti in Latin America. Haiti has been independent for more than 200 years, but they're still asking for foreign aid. You see that? That is what I'm talking about. I'm not saying that you should never accept aid from anyone. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that stop that dependency, that kind of mindset. Whenever you have a problem, you always look up toward the outside powers, the colonial ones especially, and ask them for foreign aid. As soon as you have this kind of mindset, you don't take care by yourself, you cannot go very far. Because no one is going to give you something for free. They always want something back. In this case, control, colonial control, still a post-colonial one. Is that the trade-off here? Is that the price that you want to pay? Just ask something from someone and you are willing to be a slave to them? I think that the price is too high to pay. I rather want to be independent than to accept your foreign aid and have to do all this kind of thing for you, to be controlled by you. I'd rather have less, I work hard and build my own society and my culture, be proud of myself, be happy with myself. I think that's much better solution in the longer term. But when you become dependent like this, you enslave yourself like this, that's not go very far. This is why, by the way, Africa is still among the poorest countries in the world. You need to wake up about this kind of dependency syndrome.
Africa need to wake up.
Exactly. That's why a lot of people now in Africa, many of them keep talking about the Pan-Africanism, talking about the new leadership, that how the African leaders are impoverishing Africa. Have you ever heard some speeches, let's say, by the South African guy, what's the name again? He is the head of the opposition, I forget about name, Molena, I do not remember name, the one in Kenya or Uganda, they say PLO Lumumba or something like that. Many of these people have been lecturing for years now, for days. I say we need to be independent, we need to have some new leadership, we need to get rid of all this kind of colonial control. We need to have some kind of new sense of African Renaissance. We need to have a Pan-Africanism. Well, there's a lot to talk, by the way, but I would like to see some actions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Peter. Thank you for accepting the invitation and to talk to us. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.